Now, what about from an applications perspective? Are you, I mean, Ken from App Central talked about, client server, and I remember that was always, top of the list in terms of you had to make sure that you had a training component to any kind of rollout. I mean, do you need training as a rollout?
Yeah, so on the application training perspective, I had an interesting question was sent to me. It said, one of the applications we built, I was asking for a training manual. My initial response, kind of tongue-in-cheek, was, do you download training manuals when you download apps from the App Store and the consumer apps? And the challenge is that except for business critical items, how to interpret the data, how to interpret the rules on what you're saying, applications have to be intuitive. That's a challenge for how you think about it. Now, does it mean that you don't have to create training manuals? No, but it forces you to think, how do I make this application so easy to use that I don't have to sit down with everybody and teach them how to use? Now, for new methods about thinking about the training rollouts, videos are something we're looking at. Try to put capture small videos to showcase how best things to use the application, because there are many features that won't be apparent when you start playing with the app. Like how many of you know that you can use 4 fingers on the iPad and flip the whole screen up and kill applications running, right? I mean, that's when I found that out, it was amazing, but until somebody showed me. So we'll have to rely a lot on the networking, social networking aspect to it as well. Mm-hmm. So videos and town halls, but in the end, applications have to be self-explanatory.
Mm. I could ask you guys questions all day. Let's take some questions from the audience.
I have one.
Yes.
Yeah, I have questions for both of you. Quickly, is how many mobile applications have you released for your employees, and what kinds of applications are they?
So,
can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question was, how many applications have we rolled out and the types of applications? So for the employees, I can probably say we're in the low team. And right now, since we're going with these, we're still in a few handful of applications. The type of applications are, initially you may say things that are delivering information, targeting information to employees. Right now they look for printed reports. That's one of the business intelligence type of applications. That's one that we've seen that there's a big need across, not just in our industry, but across all industries. We're also looking at, to figure out, as well as the main number one, we're also looking at figuring out how to help them equip with better information for selling, for example.
So we are actually looking at apps that actually cross, what everyone's been talking about earlier today. We have apps for our customers. We have apps for our channel partners. We're looking at apps that actually tie into how you actually manage our products as well as apps for internal to our users from an internal community standpoint and an internal blogging standpoint. And so we are looking literally across the spectrum. Everyone that I've been listening to talking today is talking about the different areas. And we're actually trying to take that all in, and we're trying to work on that all. However, the challenge is again to start with the low-lying fruit to where you actually can get the buy-in, and so the individuals actually take ownership and really see the value of that before you actually come out with full, rich, featured applications that that may need a manual. Mm-hmm. And no, we don't want a manual.
Correct.
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
Dave, earlier you mentioned that I think it was one of the very first apps that you developed was at that intersection of technology feasibility and business viability. Could you say what that app did? Could you elaborate on that a little bit? And then maybe also, Roger, just maybe comment on the apps that you were describing. What was probably the first most popular app that has been in place at Brocade for you guys that you've developed?
So the question was, an example of the intersection of the 3 areas we're talking about, in the innovation space, what kind of application it was, and that drove the demand. I can talk generally about it. It's so we looked at a pane, kind of getting information from reports. So it's thinking about like a business intelligence application. But we actually, what made that application fairly desirable by users is that it was an easy way for them to get numbers that they needed when they needed, and on-the-go type of thing. So almost thinking about, you're looking at the pain of, I have to print so many reports to take with me or download Excels to my laptop. Now I can get some information that I need when they are where they are. That's what gave us the pull. If you think about it, it was feasible, it was something they needed, and it's something that we say has business value for them.
So from our perspective, one of the things that we wanted to make sure is we wanted to make sure that we actually built the foundation of how we could actually deploy apps and how we could actually have visibility into the different apps to begin with. And so we started with that infrastructure to be able to deploy our first app. And we're an engineering company. We're designing switches and for the data center. And what you have when you have a whole bunch of engineers like that, you have guys that are really creative about what they want to build and what they want to work on, and they're really critiquing and like to talk about it, and and critique each other on that. So the most popular that we're looking at, started with, was actually an internal community app to be able to, on all topics. We have topics that we're using within the operations from an HR perspective to, how do we handle facilities, updates on the parking garage, but then other topics where the individuals can actually build their own topic platform. And, you get a lot of communication and dialogue going back and forth between the different product divisions on the engineering side, and a lot of good chatter going back and forth.
Steve, did that answer your question? Okay. I have a question about innovation. David, you mentioned it quite often. How do you identify it? I mean, what are the best practices in terms of leveraging third parties to kind of source, to not just find the innovation internally, but also tap your third party outside the firewall, if you will, to kind of.
I think a mistake that a lot of people make is thinking that you have to look within your own industry to find the best of. I think there are many ideas coming from many industries, many verticals, many horizontals, that when you start looking to say, if you see a big idea and thinking, how would I use it within my vertical industry, sometimes you get some really ahas to say, wow, that's a very different way of thinking about how I do my business. What if I integrate the technology from that a specific company is bringing to what I do, and you might have a winner. I think it's a plurality of ideas initially, and trying to figure out what could be, and then synthesis afterwards. And I think, personally for me, if you ever ask yourself a question to say, wouldn't it be nice if, why does this have to be so hard? That's probably the seed for an innovation overall. Just like there are apps right now to say, wouldn't it be nice if I could know if something is cheaper somewhere else? Now you have apps that solve for that, right? So if you're kind of, many questions come and go, and one of those may be the seeds for innovation. And then you can start looking at what other people are doing and marrying those.
And innovation goes two ways too. It can go out to the third parties as well.
Yeah, collaboration. I think being open about the ideas, not thinking outside the box, is also part of the innovation process. Like get the plurality of ideas and then start figuring out which ones go which way, and you might get a winner, an intersection of the 3 points. And again, always you have to have your end user in mind.
Roger, how about you? How are you leveraging third parties?
Totally agree with what David just said. I mean, we actually use, we tie in with third-party developers to work on some of our apps with us. And so we're bringing in that vision and that different skill set than what we have internally. We do have internal development as well. But I really like the idea of looking outside your industry and looking outside there. If you're focused on just your industry, you're going to end up with a me too, and then you're doing what the other people in your industry are doing, and that doesn't add value. And so by looking out and looking at the different apps in different industries, that's where it's like, hey, that I can see, that's really cool, and I can see how that would make this better. And now you've got a differentiator, and now you've got something that goes beyond doing what everyone else is doing right now, and something that you can actually build excitement around, and you can actually show additional savings to the company.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Any more questions? In the back. Yes.
Yeah, David, you were talking about how you would trace people to their offices to get apps on their phones, and I remember the PC days. There was you had days where that was you're running around with CDs and stuff like that. What both of you using to basically try and solve that problem and drive it to scale within a large organization that you guys are both a part of?
So the question is about the solution distribution to the phones. Initially, when we're looking at the native applications and talking about specifically for Apple applications, you had two options. One was you have a Mac and you have the configuration utility. You chase people and put meetings and train other people on a one-to-one to distribute the applications. And that, of course, is very limited. The other option that we went off next is we were able to build the applications and send them to people so they could install them through iTunes as well, desktop synchronization. But again, it had so many failure points that it was not as scalable. So we're looking at, on a previous panel, we're looking at enterprise app stores as well. So as the next, that's probably the best way to do it. I know that some companies do distribute applications to the external app store. I just personally, I don't think that'll be a good practice for an enterprise. You want to have your apps out there as well, which are for internal use only. So I think having the internal app stores or app distribution facilities the best way.
Any more questions? All right, let's wrap up on what one takeaway would you leave the audience with when it comes to the opportunity here in terms of the buyer's perspective?
I think from an application team perspective, and if you're trying to disrupt the business and technology, I think you had to learn to live with uncertainty. I think that's common that goes across most of my projects. If I were to wait until everything was set in stone, I don't think we'd ever get off the ground. So you have to, at some points, take some risks, calculated risks, obviously, right? But that's one different. And of course, thinking about your users, that's front and center. That's who your customer, the users are the ones who put in the money in my pocket, so I need to work for them.
You absolutely have to be ahead of it. You can't be in a reactive mode. So you've got to look at what your core business is, what you actually need and how you can enable mobility, and you have to build the infrastructure for that. And you have to look at the customers, find out what the customers are using and what their needs are, and make sure that you build that into your infrastructure for your reportability and for your deployment. An enterprise application over-the-wire installation is critical to be able to create an end-user experience so that you can actually then move this program forward and actually be an enabler. You can't get in the way. They're going to run right over you.
All right, so stop being a hockey goalie and be more like Wayne Gretzky and skate to where the puck is going.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.